Afternoon, everyone. How are we traveling? Bit sleepy? Need a bit of a caffeine boost? I promise I'll keep this as interesting and interactive as possible. By way of introduction, I'm Vikrant Mulgund. I'm part of EY's advisory division based out of Sydney, and I lead our capital infrastructure and asset management practice across the APAC region. In my career, approaching 20 years, I've worked across mega projects, both in the development and delivery phase, and over the last few years have been working with engineering and construction companies specifically to help navigate transformative journeys, basically helping them embrace digital in a big way and change the way they do business. So today, we're going to give you a perspective on how some of these journeys have gone, why some of these organizations are going about rethinking the way they want to do business, looking at what some of these organizations have done differently, and also present a case study on how these transformations could be managed. Try and make this work. Okay. So really a three-point agenda, as I said. We've got about 40 minutes. I'll try and keep the presentation to under 30 minutes, and really looking forward to having a discussion with the group here on any of their experiences in either being part of such transformative journeys, or if you've seen things along the fringes, really keen to hear about all that. So as part of our presentation, we'll start with the drivers for why businesses are looking to do things differently. In the second part, we'll talk about what some of the other more mature organizations have gone about doing. And this is where we wanted to showcase the results from a global research project that EY did back in 2018. So it's only about a year old. And there's some very interesting observations that we'd like to share with you. And then as part of the how component of the presentation, we'll talk about an approach that we have successfully implemented across the globe. It's actually a platform called the Transformation Hub, which has been used across engineering and construction and industrial sector clients in helping navigate these journeys. So we'll share with you a snapshot of what some of those journeys are. So starting with the why. Now, I'm sure most of you work with the engineering and construction or the infrastructure sector in some way, shape, or form, or are associated with it in some capacity. So what you would see on here are some of the challenges that the industry faces, and most of these wouldn't be surprising to you. But just to bring this to life, some interesting statistics here. So aging workforce and skills shortage is a real problem. I mean, for anyone in the room who's been trying to recruit the right talent is often a challenge. And this is despite the fact that engineering and construction as a sector contributes to about 8% of Australian GDP. And there's about 1.1 million people already employed in the sector in Australia. Yet, supply cannot keep up with demand. In fact, the construction sector is expected to grow 2% per quarter up to 2023, after which it will start to taper down. But not for too long. I mean, you're still going to need talent in the operations and asset management phase of these projects. You know, you're building billions of dollars of infrastructure. All of this needs to be looked after. There's still going to be a big challenge in ensuring that the right pipeline of talent is built up and retained. In fact, because this was part of a global study, the problem in China is even more severe. The proportion of population above the age of 65 is significantly higher than you would expect. And a number of, in China, the bigger challenge is the talent pipeline is not filling up fast enough. So there's a number of people not wanting to work in engineering and construction. They've chosen other professions. So anyway, real challenge, and we'll talk about how some of the Chinese companies are going about mitigating this. You would have heard of reduced productivity, primarily as a result of the inexperience and lack of senior talent. But then it is countered by the fact that there are technological advancements, and we'll talk about some of those. We all know that profit margins in the engineering sector are under significant pressure. We are seeing a lot of consolidation in the industry. Again, without naming names, some of the big construction companies here in Australia are either looking to sell their engineering and construction divisions or are very close to being sold back on the back of some major project failures. And the last point you would see around data and intelligence. Now, this is a particularly pertinent aspect of the industry where historically we've not been very data-driven. And there are advances in the industry which is all about improving the transparency of data, creating intelligent insights, and coming up with ways to do things better. And again, we'll cover that in the second part of the presentation. So when you bring all of this together, one of the things you will notice is these challenges are not going to go away anytime soon. The industry has to deal with this. It's only a matter of finding ways to deal with these challenges and continue to make money and build infrastructure for the generations to come. So how would you do that? It's through implementing new technology, looking at alternate business models, looking at supplier ecosystems, rethinking contracting models, and the like. So moving on to the second part, this is where I wanted to share some of the insights from the EY Global Study, which was done in 2018. So we did this study across a global set of 80 companies across the globe. The combined value of those companies was over $500 billion. And as you would see on the slide, these were based out of North America, Europe, and APAC. Now, the study focused on digital readiness, innovation, and they were very, by all means, feel free to read this report. I can share this link with you on the Project Controls Expo website. There's some very interesting insights around how new technology has been adopted. And this is where you'll see some very specific examples of blockchain, cybersecurity, and how it's been impacting the engineering and construction sector. So what does the study tell us, right? So it revealed that 68% of the respondents agreed that digital will be a game changer. And interestingly, everyone thinks that the competition's already well and truly on a transformative path and embracing digital transformation. Can't say that with certainty, but that certainly is the perception. But the industry, as we all know, is quite conservative. We found that 59% of the respondents prefer to wait, and they would rather be an early adopter as opposed to an innovator. So, I'm probably telling you things you already know, but if you think of the innovation adoption life cycle, the first category of people are innovators who want to try out new things, followed by early adopters, forming the second category. Then is the large majority of people who essentially adopt what's already been proven, and then there's the last category called laggards. So the industry believes that early adopters will be the ones who would win in the long term and will create a source of competitive advantage both for themselves as well as for those who are part of their ecosystem. What's not on the slide is that we also found that 67% of the global engineering and companies invest less than 1% of their turnover on innovation, which is staggeringly low compared to a number of other sectors. I mean, I'm not even talking high tech. Even innovation in the retail sector is significantly higher than what we see in engineering and construction. The ones who are doing marginally better are the Chinese and the Japanese. They have invested only 1.5%, but they are still better than their global cohort. And that's precisely why, there's a very strong imperative. They, especially in China, they do not have a lot of talent pool, a prolific talent pool to fall back on. So hence they make use of technology and are investing heavily in it. What we saw was the big bets that engineering and construction companies are facing are in 5 big areas. ERP systems seem to be the flavor of the decade. Everyone wants to implement an ERP system of some sort or the other. Cloud-based solutions, you must have heard a number of presentations today about cloud-based program management software being implemented. And they all work, and there's a very good reason for that. It's all about creating transparency of data and making information available to people, so cloud-based solutions do work. Analytics is a big area where we see a lot of, EY itself has got a lot of experience in driving analytics on major projects for clients, as well as company data, looking at historical data, benchmarks to help drive better decision-making across a portfolio of projects. And we'll come to that a little later. Handheld technologies are also seen to be quite in vogue, and not surprisingly, BIM. Now, the reason why it does not appear in the top 5 is that the study split BIM into 2D, 3D, and 3D plus. So when you aggregate the 3, they are actually, BIM technologies are actually a big bet that a number of organizations are placing. What we also found was for optimal value to be gained, these systems need to be integrated. And it's not just about achieving integration for the sake of it. There's got to be the right level of integration to make sure that the workflow and information flow occurs in a manner that real decisions could be made. Interestingly, only 14% of the survey respondents had fully integrated systems, either at a business unit level or at an organization-wide level. And a staggering 68% were still on a journey to achieve integration of systems. And this level of integration was not just at a systemic level. It was also around initiatives around innovation being pursued by different divisions within the organization, often not talking to each other, or often not taking cognizance of the fact that there is another initiative elsewhere in the organization which we could learn from. So essentially, a siloed approach to innovation is what's been quite prevalent. And that's where we get to the point of talking about why business transformation at a holistic level is important, right? One of the things we see is a number of organizations embark on transformative journeys, often without knowing what other parts of their business are up to, and that leads to challenges around suboptimal outcomes not being joined up in their efforts, and as a result, not realizing the full benefits of the transformation. So let's talk about how. So how are some of the more positive transformative journeys panned out? Now, before I go into this, again, I like statistics and I'm going to present a few more. So there was a recent Forbes study done where around 84% of companies fail at business transformation in the digital era, precisely for the reasons I just mentioned, efforts not being integrated across the enterprise. Another statistic from ChangePoint suggests that 80% of the execs do not know how their projects align with their ultimate strategic objectives. So again, a number of initiatives being run in parallel, often by different parts of the organization without sticking to the game plan. So that's where we thought, EY as an organization came up with a service offering called Transformation Hub, which essentially bridges the gap between strategy, execution, and performance measurement. And how do we do that is by means of what we call a transformation hub, which brings together the various components to basically make a transformation work for your organization. Now, it may sound pretty intuitive, but more often than not, it's quite a task to achieve in a global organization. One of my current clients are a global engineering and construction and property development company. They've got a footprint in about 80 countries, thousands of people employed across these countries, and effecting a transformative initiative across the enterprise is a massive challenge, as you can imagine. So how does Transformation Hub work in an organization like this, right? So the way we like to think about Transformation Hub is it's an end-to-end platform that brings together strategy, execution, and performance management. It serves as a one-stop shop where you start with a strategy where your organizational objectives are turned into clear, actionable guidelines, through to execution where you apply traditional program management rigor and analytics, and this is where the discipline of project controls comes in. We are increasingly finding that transformation programs do warrant for the rigor and discipline employed in capital projects. So that's where we see a lot of our clients wanting to apply some of that rigor into a transformation program. And the third bit is around performance. It's where the intelligence layer comes in. It's around ensuring that you are learning out of your portfolio of programs and making the right decisions. The classic start, stop, continue analysis. Now, one of the other things you would probably know is, unlike a capital project where the business case and benefits case does not get revisited every year or every couple of years. Once the business case is signed off, you go build the damn thing and hope that it will deliver on the intended benefits. With transformation programs, it's a bit different. You've got to keep going back to the business case, ensure that it is still aligned with your strategy, and any necessary course corrections are to be made on a near real-time basis. So it's very common to do a review of the portfolio of improvement programs or transformation programs every 6 months. So with that being said, let me just provide a quick snapshot of what Transformation Hub actually is. So really, I won't really labor on each and every point, but it's about bringing together our combined expertise working across transformations across multiple sectors, pre-configuring it on a Microsoft-based cloud solution, which can be readily implemented with most clients. It is fit for purpose and is able to work with numerous project management methodologies, whether it is agile or waterfall, or call it what you will. And more importantly, it helps drive insights through benchmarks on how other transformation programs have fared relative to the one in question. Now, this platform has been deployed globally across several infrastructure organizations, across the industrials and engineering and construction sector. Locally, we've implemented this with both the federal and state government, with a number of infrastructure organizations in the power and utility sector. And we have a current implementation going with the state government of Victoria. And here in Australia, we do this through one of our implementation partners, Sensei Project Solutions. They have an exhibit here. They're one of the exhibitors today. And we've worked with them in implementing a number of these. Globally, we have other implementation partners, but the principles of Transformation Hub are quite consistent. Now, we'll talk about a very specific case study of a North American industrials client, where I'm just going to give you a very quick tour of what Transformation Hub really is and try and bring it to life for you. For client confidentiality reasons, I won't be in a position to go through any specifics, but hopefully what I'm going to show you will give you a flavor for how it works in practice and what it really is. So, as I said, it's got 3 modules: strategy module, execution module, and a performance management module. So, just a snapshot of the strategy module. So, as I said, this is for a North American industrial client who wanted to transform their organization in response to cost pressures and wanting to innovate their portfolio of products. So what they did was they identified transformation areas that they needed to rethink the way they did their business. And as I was saying before, it's never only about technology. It's about business processes, business models, ecosystems. And this example brings that one to life. So they had 3 transformation areas in the area of product portfolio, transform supplier relationships through reviewing their ecosystem, and also improve employee experience. So 3 very varied areas, but all working towards the objective of transforming the organization. Now, I hope there's a pointer here. Yep, okay. Now the transformation areas then get tracked, or the specifics of the transformation areas then get described onto the system, where it's very clear as to what the transformation area is, what the objectives are, and moving on to what the intended benefits are and the budget associated with that initiative is. So the reason why you set this upfront in the system is because, remember I said it's very common for us to review this in transformation programs every 6 months or every 12 months to make sure that you're focusing on the right problems. So then into the execution module, once the strategy is set, we then typically design programs to achieve the strategic outcomes. Now, in this case, around transforming the product portfolio, the client identified 3 program areas, or 3 programs: prototype a new model, IoT and talent hiring, and the third one was acquire a design tech company. So all 3 were treated as programs and were managed by different parts of the business, each with an individual owner, each with its own budget, each with its own governance board, but ultimately it all fed into the broader transformation program that the client was embarking on. Now the graphic on the right looks quite busy, and what it is when you aggregate all the programs under all transformation areas, it allows you to carry out what-if analysis on which programs are the ones you would like to take forward to get the best bang for buck. You can carry out scenario analysis, and apologies if it's not very clear, but there's a scenario in here where you could say, what if I had 12 million? Where do I invest my money in? Which programs do I put my money in to get the best bang for buck? So you can do that sort of scenario analysis in the Transformation Hub platform. Then when it comes to individual programs, it's classic program management where the idea here is to employ rigor and discipline, classic program management rigor and discipline, as you all would be familiar with. So again, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on this one. Fairly standard stuff, but the benefit of doing this on a platform is it's all in one place. It's in that one-stop shop. You can do reports, you can identify trends, track performance through program reporting, and the like. Again, fairly standard stuff. And you would have seen some presentations today that of cloud-based solutions that do similar things. The one around performance is quite an interesting one. So tracking portfolio performance is quite important. You've got to ensure that 6 months into your program, it is actually delivering on the intended objectives. And when you link this back to the original objectives and the benefit statement that you set up in the strategy module, it gives you the ability to undertake periodic course corrections if needed. So again, the classic start, stop, continue analysis can be done every 6 months or however frequently you would like it to be. And again, there are different value drivers that you can look at. Once you have all the data, the Transformation Hub platform can help slice and dice it, give you different cuts of value realization, which will help with your decision making on which programs you continue, which ones you stop, and so on. So really, that's all I had. I guess just to bring it all together, in terms of a summary, it is true that asset-intensive organizations, specifically engineering and construction as a sector, is transforming, embracing digital in a very big way. Often with mixed results, the industry still remains conservative and is looking for others to lead the charge and become more of an early adopter than an innovator. But then in going about these journeys, there's a very deliberate way that starts from the top and goes all the way down to execution, which has been successfully proven through our Transformation Hub solution. So I'll pause there and look forward to any questions or any experiences from the group. Sure.
A fundamental part of any transformation is culture and cultural change. How does your transformational hub model adopt for that or support that in that environment? I'm from a banking and finance background and gone through a number of transformations, so I'd like to hear how EY's managed to tackle that.
Yeah, so typically with our transformations, we usually have a people and change management stream that runs in parallel with the technology component, which is the Transformation Hub. And what we typically do is, it was not on the slides here, but all stakeholder mapping and change management comms can be tracked on Transformation Hub. Needless to say, a lot of that information can be quite sensitive, so we try and restrict access to who that information is made available to. But the tool, the platform itself does cater to people and change management aspects. Any others? The coffees are arriving, so. Okay. Clear as mud. Ted, looks like you have a question.
I'm not sure. Not sure you're going to enjoy this question, but how is success measured, and to what extent is your fee linked to the success?
Oh, very good. Contingent fees. Yeah, look, I think it's no secret that transformative initiatives like these span over a period of time, often multiple years, and for benefits to be truly realized, that is, if you want to move the dial on, let's say, reduced enterprise level costs, for instance, there are some aspects of that which you can achieve relatively quickly. We typically call them quick wins, but often enterprise-wide, corporate-level transformational benefits tend to get realized over a period of time. In terms of measuring it through the Transformation Hub, again, the platform does have the ability to monitor and track benefits on a fairly regular basis. And it comes down to aggregation of information across multiple business units, ultimately helping you realize the intended benefit if cost is the driver, for instance. With regards to our fees, I think it's fair to say that Big Four and more generally consulting service providers are gradually moving away from time and material consulting, and it's more around outcomes-based consulting. Is it very common? I wouldn't say it's very common, but certainly there are fees at risk type models which we ourselves have entered into. But it's more of an exception than a norm, and the level of exposure is relatively small. Any other experiences, any other consultants in the room who have done it differently? Very keen to hear. How about banking? How do you measure benefits in banking transformations?
We're still trying to actually get the right formula in place to measure that value. However, it is an extremely long journey. I'm originally from ANZ, now I've moved into NAB. ANZ's approach was a enterprise holistic transformational change from the top down, which fundamentally shifted the organisation from a very siloed interdepartmental structure to a more end-to-end, release, train, value-driven organisation.
Yep.
They're still shifting as we go. They've embedded a number of controls around that as well, in the most agile possible way, because they are running agile teams and the construct of and utilising those principles. From an NAB perspective, they're trying to shift from the bottom up. They've gotten to a point where the organisational capability from a delivery project perspective is got to a point where the top down of the organisation hasn't met up yet. So they're a bit heady, and there's no real clear value outcomes yet from that. So we're looking at how we're going to shift that and how we're going to work as an enterprise to, get the executives really understanding what transformation is and understanding what the value that it will bring it if they were to organisationally shift.
Yep.
Because they are still in silos, working as silos, but trying to deliver in a more agile and transformative way, really. So it's an interesting environment, an interesting approach that they've taken.
Yeah, and with my current client, what I'm finding the same. We tend to see that some initiatives work in certain business divisions, but to scale that up across the organization is the biggest challenge. I mean, even internal success stories can only go so far. The constant pushback we keep hearing from the heads of other business units is, their business is very different. That wouldn't apply here. You don't understand our challenges. So often it's that resistance to change that needs to be the biggest challenge. Whereas the execs on the top are very clear of the outcome they want to achieve. It's often at the number two, that middle layer, that we face the biggest challenges.
And that's where that's why I pointed out that cultural element, which is so fundamental
Yep.
to really make that shift.
Yep. Very good. Any other questions? We are almost at the top of the hour. All good? Going, gone. Thank you.